What is life? Adam, the first man, was formed out of the ground, and God breathed into him the breath of life, the Ruach, the Spirit. Life comes from God. It's a part of Him that He loans to us, to all living creatures. It's not to be confused with the Holy Spirit. Also, not to be confused with man having his own independent spirit, separate from God. Truth is, man is not 3 parts. Man is 2 parts plus the breath of life. It comes from God and also returns back to God. Like Ecclesiastes 12:7 says, "Then shall the dust return to the earth as it was, and the spirit shall return unto God who gave it." When you die, you become just 1 part. You become a soul. When the body, this flesh, when it dies, it is because the breath of life, the spirit, has left and returned to where it came. James 2:26, "For as the body apart from the spirit is dead, so also faith apart from works is dead." Now when we become born again, the Holy Spirit comes to us and fills us. Our body is a literal temple where God's Spirit comes in to dwell. Look back at the Old Testament. Before Yeshua came into the world, the judges, prophets, kings were filled with a spirit or the Spirit of the Lord at certain times. Judges 3:10, Judges 6:34, and Judges 4:6 all say that when the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, or the Spirit of the Lord came upon Gideon, or the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him, that is showing that the Spirit of the Lord that the Holy Spirit is coming in or upon someone, separate from the life breath. Now, the life breath does not go on beyond you. There's no spirit ghost of you that walks around. Again, that is the breath of life given by God, and it returns to Him, and that's when the body dies. The body cannot live without the Spirit, that breath of life. So before Christ, the Spirit of God did not dwell in a man. It was only after Yeshua died and arose again that the true branch of Him could have the indwelling of the Holy Spirit. That is, again, reinforced by the Old Testament and the New Testament, where it was a temporary function in the Old Testament that the Spirit of the Lord came upon someone temporarily. But now, with Christ's death and resurrection and God sending His Holy Spirit, we can have that Holy Spirit dwell within us. Looking back at the Old Testament, we see 2 different scenarios where the Spirit of the Lord would enter something. Again, one was the temporary filling of a person, and the other was the filling of God's temple. The temple held the Holy of Holies, and that's the place where the Spirit came down to enter and dwell. Now, currently, the Spirit of the Lord comes and fills our temple, our body. We are the temple of God, and that's now the Holy of Holies. Your body is a physical shell that your soul retains until death. Now, once upon death, again, your soul goes either to one of 2 places. It either goes to hell, or it goes to God's holding ground, Abraham's bosom, or, whatever it's referred to. Some people refer it to as heaven. Not saying it's the throne of God, but we go to a separate holding place. And the Spirit, that breath of life, returns to God. It does not stay down here. It doesn't go with our soul to that holding place. Those that follow God's law stays until his holding place, until the resurrection. Those that reject his law and don't live in it, they go down to what we call hell. And then, of course, there's sin involved, so that eventually goes into a lake of fire. Now, sort of question from the beginning, was Adam and Eve filled with the Holy Spirit? And I don't believe that there's evidence proving that Adam and Eve were filled with the Spirit. I'm also not saying that they weren't, but there didn't seem to be a need for them to be, because daily, they alone were able to walk with God. They communed with God. There was that daily relationship. So there was no need for that infilling of the Holy Spirit within them. Now, another thing I don't really quite understand is when someone says, I am a spiritual person. Because what does that mean? One, are you communing with other spirits? Are you cognitive of the breath of life in you? Or are you in communication with the Holy Spirit? Or a spirit? I don't really understand that, but the question is, what spirit do they walk in? Are they walking in the Holy Spirit of God or some other one? Most assuredly, if you're walking in God's Spirit, there's fruits there. Now, the fruits of walking in the Holy Spirit are signs that you show love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faithfulness, meekness, and temperance. Now, meekness is humility or humbleness, and temperance is self-control. That's found in Galatians 5:22 through 23. And those are all fruits showing that you live with the Holy Spirit indwells in you, and you're not walking in the flesh, but you're walking in communication with the Holy Spirit. Now, maybe you don't know. Maybe you're like, okay, I do see signs of that, but I'm not sure. Well, signs, the fruits of living in the flesh are, there's a lot, but there's adultery, fornication, uncleanliness, lasciviousness, which is lustfulness, unbridled, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, jealousy, wrath, strife, division, heresies, envying, murder, drunkenness, and reveling, which is like drunken partying. Idolatry isn't used often today, but that's an image worship. What image are you worshiping? Is it someone on TV? Is it a sports star? Also, witchcraft doesn't mean you have to be making, a brew. You don't have to have a big cauldron where you're throwing shrooms in. It's just that's someone that uses drugs to attain a different level. Now, all of those are found in Galatians 5:19 through 21. The true nature of any living being is that we live because of a type of rule that seems to be implemented by God. His breath of life is in us, but we can also gain more as a believer. To have faith and acknowledge the grace of salvation through Yeshua gives us the indwelling of His Holy Spirit to dwell inside us, to commune with us, that relationship. So if life comes from God, then all living creatures hold the Spirit. It's not a personal ownership of our own spirit, but it's borrowed life by God, our Creator, until it leaves our body. That's when we die. And I do believe that looking into this, it just kind of skims the top of a spiritual subject. There's many more spirits spoken of in His Word. There's spirits of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, counsel and might, fear of the Lord. There's familiar spirits. lying spirits, spirits of infirmity, uncleanliness, and evil spirits. There's also the 7 spirits of God before the throne that we see in Revelation. There's a lot there that we don't really understand. An example of, let's say, the spirit of might that can be seen on Samson. He was mighty and strong. There's the unclean spirits that Jesus cast out. If you remember or have read it, there's this guy that they came upon and he cast out all these unclean spirits into pigs. So I just want to encourage you to look at the word further and learn and receive the spirits of knowledge and understanding in this subject, because I think it's beneficial just for your basic understanding of kind of God's rule and law. I don't know, I find it interesting. But anyway, hope you all take care. Keep up your study, keep up reading of the Word. Trust the Word, not what man teaches you. Again, as always, I like to say that, hey, don't believe me, look at it for yourself. But other than that, thanks for hanging out, stopping by, and shalom.